Welcome back, folks, to Uncle Three's Haunted Tales. This is our 37th night, so pull up a chair and listen close. Tonight, I've got a story for you that ties into something that happened just last week all across Asia. It's about a celestial event we call the blood moon. Now, you might not have even noticed it because these blood moons appear so silently, so subtly, most folks don't even realize they're there. But in Asia, a blood moon isn't just a pretty sight. It's an omen, a dark prophecy. And it doesn't strike right away. Oh no. It simmers, it brews, it lurks slowly. Slowly, before its true horror unfolds. It just shows itself, then vanishes in a blink. And what follows? Nothing short of chaos. We're talking natural disasters, people's very natures turning dark, and terrible crimes popping up everywhere. You see, this blood moon phenomenon is deeply tangled with ancient customs and old traditions that the younger generation just shrugs off. They figure those dusty old rules don't belong in our modern world. But believe me, these things still exist, still simmer beneath the surface, and we're none the wiser. The story I'm about to tell you all started in the Philippines, nearly 30 years ago, during one of those blood moon nights. The Philippines, even today, still holds on to some of those ancient ways and old customs. And among them, there's one tale so shocking. It's hard to believe. This particular story involves a Filipino couple, devout followers of original Buddhism. Now, original Buddhism, you mostly see it in places like Cambodia, Laos, or Thailand these days. Unlike some other forms, followers of this path eat whatever's offered to them, meat and all. Some even go on spiritual retreats to honor their parents, then return to their regular lives. So, even though Catholicism is huge in the Philippines, there are still Buddhist temples tucked away, keeping the old faith alive. This couple, they were deep into their faith, always making offerings and doing good deeds. Then came that night. The husband, a man named Carlo, was on his way home in the dark, and that's when he saw it, the blood moon. He was mesmerized. Carlo, poor guy, had no idea this was a dangerous spiritual omen, something you should warn others about. Instead, he saw it and thought, wow, the heavens, Buddha himself, must be looking out for me, granting me this special sight. He asked around his neighborhood on the way home, but hardly anyone else had seen it. When he got back, he excitedly told his wife. She immediately rushed outside to look, but it was gone, swallowed by dark clouds. A lot of people in Carlo's area came out to gaze at the blood moon that night, but no one else saw it by then. Carlo, he just beamed. I saw it. The moon was so red, so powerful. That was a blessing from above, just for me. Must be all the good deeds I've been doing. I'm truly blessed. He told his wife, tomorrow, you've got to buy a ton of offerings. I'm going to the temple to make an offering and tell the monk what I saw. His wife agreed. You're right. We've done so much good. This is our good fortune, our blessing. We're going to be so successful now. She even said, I'll tell everyone tomorrow what you saw. But Carlo stopped her. No, don't tell anyone. This good fortune, this blessing, is just for me to know. Why tell others? Then they'll know about this omen. They'll gossip. They'll try to get ahead of us. Or worse, they might become more successful than we are. Carlo, he just didn't get it. He thought it was a personal blessing, but it wasn't. A true blessing, a real act of merit, is when you see a great danger and share it, so others can avoid it. Then, a part of the good fortune from those who avoid the disaster comes back to you. If you want to create true merit, you help everyone grow and prosper together, not just yourself, right? Anyway, his wife nodded along. That night, they both slept soundly. The next morning, Carlo woke up and headed to the backyard to wash his face and brush his teeth. He'd barely pulled back the curtain when he froze. His house was swarming with police. Neighbors were crowded around, whispering, and even the monks from the nearby temple were there. Carlo had no clue what was going on. He yelled out, loud enough for everyone to hear, for his wife to wake up. She stumbled out of the bedroom. Just like that, the couple became the absolute center of attention for the entire village. Carlo, bewildered, asked the Philippine police what was happening, and that's when they told him. Carlo was a prime suspect in the deaths of 2 burnt bodies, a man and a woman. And where were these bodies? Sitting right there in his living room. Carlo was utterly terrified. How on earth did 2 burnt bodies, a man and a woman, end up in his house? The man was sitting in the living room chair, and the woman, when first discovered, was face down right by the main door. But after the initial examination, they'd moved both bodies into the living room. The Philippine police questioned the couple, but of course neither Carlo nor his wife had any idea who these charred victims were. And here's where it gets really chilling. After all the forensic examinations, all the scientific procedures by the police, there wasn't a single trace of a struggle between Carlo's couple and those 2 bodies. They couldn't even identify the man and woman. It was as if they just appeared in Carlo's house. But you know what truly sent shivers down my spine? There were no signs of forced entry on Carlo's door. No footprints of anyone carrying bodies in or out, and not a single hint of a fire, of anything being burned inside the house. Even the next-door neighbors didn't smell a thing. Now, you might think I'm making this up, but it's real, folks. Truly real. I'll even show you the evidence of the blood moon happening again at the end of this story. So, back to Carlo. Of course, he and his wife were taken into custody for questioning. The police simply couldn't understand how 2 bodies ended up in their house, so they were the prime suspects, and the case seemed to close with them arrested. But then, about 2 weeks after the couple was detained, something unexpected happened. The abbot, the head monk of the temple near Carlo's house, went to see the Philippine police chief. The monk brought an ancient book with him, and he told the chief, "There are ancient customs in our country, sir. One of them is the terrifying ritual of sacrifice." He explained that to perform this dark magic, you need a man and a woman. On a blood moon night, they are buried alive. The purpose? To harness the souls of these 2 forces, they manipulate time and space, travel to neighboring regions, and spread evil energy, sowing disaster everywhere. These 2 restless souls become harbingers of misfortune in the surrounding areas. The abbot went on to explain, to bury them alive, you first have to kill them. The practitioner of this dark art douses the victims with gasoline, burns them, and then buries them underground. That's why, sometimes, in different places, but at the same time as a blood moon, burnt bodies might just appear out of nowhere in a nearby region. And that, chief, is why those 2 burnt bodies appeared so inexplicably in Carlo and his wife's house. Now, When the abbot presented that ancient book and told his wild story to the Philippine police chief, the chief naturally didn't believe a word of it, but he was respectful. He spoke politely to the monk, though deep down, he was skeptical. He said the case was still under investigation, relying on science and the law. He admitted they hadn't concluded Carlo and his wife were the killers, but with the bodies found in their home and the couple offering no explanation, they remained the number one suspects in the eyes of the police and the public at the time. The real issue now, the chief stated, is just identifying those two bodies. Once we do that, we can close this case. The monk, however, urged him, follow the book, chief. Don't bother looking for their identities in this area. If the book is right, those two bodies, their identities will be found in a nearby region, not here. If you want to find out who they are, ask the police in other districts for help. But you know how it is with bureaucracy, right? Officials in one province can't just call up another and demand secret files without orders from high up. Sometimes, police chiefs use personal favors, but if it backfires and gets tangled in another region's case, it could cost them their job. So, the chief didn't do it. He just respectfully told the monk he'd look into it and promised to come back to the temple to update him. But again, he was just being polite. He didn't actually believe a word of it. The monk just looked at the chief and sighed. It's a pity, chief. My time in this mortal realm is almost up. I have only 10 more days before I return to Buddha. So, in these 10 days, if you choose to believe me, and you find this ritual of sacrifice, first, you'll solve a wrongful case, because Carlo isn't the real culprit. And second, you'll gain immense merit. You'll save people from two regions from slaughter, because this ritual opens the yin-yang gate, allowing evil spirits to spill into our world and cause unspeakable harm. To close that gate and send them back to the underworld, you'd need truly high-ranking monks, and that's incredibly difficult. But the police chief just shook his head. Monk, please, don't talk nonsense. What's happening in this region is already exhausting enough. Just go home and rest. So, in the end, the chief just wouldn't believe. The monk bid him farewell. But before he left, he turned back and said, if one day, chief, you do believe, then come to the temple I oversee. Someone there will know about this and will help you. Help you and the people here close that yin-yang gate so the evil spirits can't find their way through. Now, let me explain this custom a bit more so that you folks listening to Uncle Three's stories can shed some light on these inexplicable mysteries of Asia. In the Philippines and even some other Asian countries, people used to believe that on the eve of a blood moon, when they saw that celestial omen, it was a day when negative energy, the yin energy, was incredibly strong. Everything bad had a tendency to happen. So some practitioners of dark, black magic would seek out a man, someone representing the common folk, the farmers, symbolizing yang energy, and a woman, someone from the noble class, a high-born lady, symbolizing yin energy. And here's the crucial part. These two people had to be deeply in love. When found, the dark sorcerer would capture them, bury them alive as a sacrifice on the blood moon night, all to harness their hateful souls to open the yin-yang gate, letting demons flood into our world to harm humanity. That's why so many terrible crimes would erupt. Back to our story. The abbot knew all about this terrifying custom. That's why he tried to warn the chief, but the chief just wouldn't listen. 10 days later, the chief was on his way to work. As he passed the monk's temple, he saw a huge crowd of devotees. Many other monks were there, performing what looked like a grand ceremony. Traffic slowed, and as he drove past, he saw it. The abbot's portrait being carried out with a funeral procession. The chief was stunned. That's when it hit him. He suddenly believed. How did this man know the exact day he would die? The police chief returned home, tormented by his thoughts, and began to investigate. Eventually, he used his personal connections to look into neighboring regions. And sure enough, there was a report of a man and a woman missing from one of those areas. When he heard this, the chief immediately petitioned the provincial authorities to review the missing persons files and re-examine the 2 burnt bodies. And it was true. The bodies were indeed the missing couple, but they still couldn't figure out how those 2 bodies ended up in his province. And here's the truly chilling part. These 2 people fit the description perfectly. One was from a poor, humble background, and the other was a wealthy, high-born lady. And yes, they were deeply in love. The police chief continued to investigate this mystery so deeply that in the time that followed, a series of serious crimes erupted in his own district. That's when the chief truly remembered the words of the deceased monk. He went to the temple that the monk had overseen, and eventually, he made a life-changing decision. He quit the police force and became a monk himself. He dedicated himself to studying, learning to harness spiritual power, and how to break this blood moon dark magic. Later, this former police chief, now a venerable monk, along with other high-ranking monks, went to the 2 regions where that couple had been buried alive. They performed a powerful sealing ritual over those lands, and they managed to banish the evil. But the story isn't over, not according to the ancient Filipino book. It says this terrifying tale repeats. Every 10 years, the cycle begins anew. Now I know, listening to this, you might think it's all just some wild, untrue legend. But let me tell you one more short story, a true one. You can even look it up on Google. On September 24th, 2023, a container was shipped from the Philippines to Thailand. It entered Thai territory on September 28th, 2023, and by October 2nd, 2023, it docked at Laim Chabang port in Chonburi province. When they opened that container, inside, they found a man and a woman, dead under bizarre circumstances, both in an advanced state of decomposition. Forensics couldn't explain how they died or how they ended up in that container. The woman was wearing pajamas and a gold ring. The man was shirtless in shorts with tattoos around his chest, though they were hard to make out due to decomposition. It gets even stranger. Inside a container, especially in that heat, even a healthy person without any illness couldn't survive more than 3 days max. Officials estimated they'd been dead for about 2 weeks and hadn't died in Thailand. No IDs, no injuries, no signs of struggle on their bodies or inside the container itself. And here's the really spooky part. A container without cargo, according to standard procedure, should be double locked. First, an electronic lock inside the container, and second, a manual lock. But before those 2 locks are engaged, the Philippines Customs are supposed to inspect the container to make sure it's empty. Only then do they apply the double locks and ship it across borders? So, how on earth did those two people get inside that locked container and die? Thai newspapers are reporting this right now, calling it an incredibly strange and mysterious phenomenon that happened in October 2023. Remember the story I told you about Carlo and the two bodies in his house on that blood moon night? That happened almost 30 years ago. You see, some spiritual things move in cycles. We can't grasp some ancient rituals, but they are happening, and these stories are true. We here might not know about it, but they're investigating in Thailand. The Thai police are working with the Philippine police on this case. But from how they're talking, it's already being called an unexplained mystery, likely to be closed soon. They just can't figure out why a woman in pajamas and a shirtless man with no signs of a fight ended up dead inside that container. Initial forensic reports even suggested both died from burning inside the container, but they later changed that report, telling the press that it was subdermal hemorrhages from decomposition, drying up and turning dark, making it look like burning, but it wasn't. So, the initial findings and the later findings are completely different. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is something being covered up here? Considering that both the Philippines and Thailand are lands known for their deep spiritual connections, perhaps we need to research more and experience more to truly see these unusual celestial events happening all around us. So tonight, I've told you a story, a deeply mysterious one, about a blood moon event that happened just a couple of years ago. Could the man and woman found dead in that container have suffered the same fate as the couple in Carlo's house? And why were they in that container, undetected, one of them in her nightclothes? There are too many mysteries for one blood moon night. Is there some horrifying truth lurking behind this celestial phenomenon? Join me again for Night 38 here on Uncle 3's Ghost Story channel.